Yat Eshe Donavan Yanshe. How are y'all doing today? My name's Donovan, and I just wanted to welcome you all today. Today I'll be talking a little bit, like I said, about my K through 12 experience. So one of my earliest memories of K through 12 was immediately after preschool. I had graduated from White Cone Head Start, and I was ready for going on through the K-12 system. The thing about it was that since I didn't always have access to my mom and I was staying with my great grandmother and my aunts, it was really tough for me to find like the best school for me, based on location, by district, and also just the rurality of where I was living. And so sometimes when I was younger, I would always wonder like, where am I going to go to school again this year? And so my first couple years out of preschool or Head Start, like I would say grade kindergarten through second grade, it was always different. I think I went through like 5 different schools in that small amount of time. I attended Park School in Holbrook. I attended Hewlett Elementary School in Holbrook. I attended Kinthachitney Day School. I attended Kemus Canyon Boarding School. I also attended Cedar Unified School District, or the Jedito School District. And those were all experiences that I had on the reservation and or off the reservation. And so it was always hard for me to sort of figure out where I was going to be going to school, because every year something else was coming up in my life. And so I always remember being on my grandma's homestead where all the rest of my grandmothers and their grandchildren were going to school. And they're my cousins, of course. And so we would all catch the bus really early in the morning, like 5:30, 6 o'clock, year round, no matter what. And whether it rained or shined or snowed, we always had to catch the bus. We had a bus driver named Howard, kind of a distant relative of ours. And he was so mean to us sometimes. Well, I considered him mean, you know. I think he was always a grumpy bus driver, but he was one of the individuals that was a little consistent in my younger years, just because we were riding the bus so often. And I remember my grandma used to ask us to go bring out some coffee, or, you know, day old fried bread, or some warm hot tortillas from breakfast that morning. So that was always a good treat to have a consistent bus driver. And so we had a lot of stops, you know, from 5:30, 6 o'clock in the morning until when class started, 7:30, 8 o'clock at the Cedar Elementary School District. And I always remember getting off and going to get breakfast and going down the hallways. The school was designed in a very like cyclical, or like a circle, and so it was like you would take a right down this long hall, and it would be where kindergarten and first grade and second grade was, and then you go up northward where like third, fourth, and fifth and sixth would go, and then on the back end of the building they had like the seventh and eighth grade grades there. And the cafeteria was huge. It was on the opposite end of the school building, and it was a large space. You get in line and you get like your day program meal, and there was also smaller buildings along the way back to the main building too. And there's a lot of interesting buildings on that campus, because each of them served their own purpose, whether it was like for science or environmental stuff. And then also the library, which is one of the first places I really got to know as a younger person. So that's some of my memories that I had of being at the elementary school there in Jedito. And then Kinthachini Day School was very interesting because my mom was staying with somebody in Ganado area. And Kinthachini is just like on your way to not to White Cone. It's on your way to Window Rock, which is like the capital of the Navajo Nation. And Kinthachini Day School was really a short time for me. I think I lasted maybe, I would say, I would say I was at Kinsley Cheney Day School for like at least a week or two. And the reason being was there were so many mean people there, like so many mean people. I always remember being ostracized and being bullied. I always remember like just wanting to be alone on my own. I would always be on the jungle gym, sort of far away from everyone as much as I could. And at this age, too, I was constantly being called names and things I didn't really understand at the time. Um, and I always, really wanted to see my grandmother, my great grandmother, because she was always someone that was didn't even have to say much to me. She could just hold me or pat me, do some sort of like physical touch, and it was always so calming. And I knew, like, even though I didn't speak Navajo by that time, she understood what was going on. And so after Kinsley Cheney, I think 2 weeks or something like that. I don't think my mom could really take care of me at that time too, because she was also dating, new in our lives, my little sister's dad. And then I was told that I was be attending Kemus Canyon boarding school, and it was really interesting to switch from like sort of like BIA and like local Navajo government run schools to this like mission led school down in the canyon, Kemus Canyon. And it served a lot of Navajo and Hopi people. And I still remember that two of my other cousins were there with me, Deidre and Charmaine. And mind you, they stayed longer than I did, but I think I only lasted there like at least 3 months or something like that, until my aunt told my mom that she wanted to take me out of there. So what happened in Kemus Canyon was it there's some very like weird memories that I have there. One, of course, we are split between genders, so just the binary boys go here and the girls would go here. And it was really hard for me because, like, even though my cousin sisters were there, we couldn't see each other all the time. And when we did see each other, obviously, she's older and the other one's younger than me. We're not going to hang out together. So it was interesting to sort of be in that dynamic where, like, you're longing to be close to your siblings, but then at the same time, like, you're kind of fending for yourselves and being on your own. But, at the Kemus Canyon boarding school, one of my fondest memories I have there, again, was where the boys were just so terrible to me. They used to call me all kinds of names. They used to bully me to the point where, like, I thought they would kill me. And I was, like, only 6, 7 years old. And some of the weirdest memories I have at the Kemus Canyon boarding school is, like, one night, it's such a weird memory. One night, I was sleeping, and I remember, like, the night person was walking through and just making sure everyone was asleep or in their beds. And then after that person, like, left, it was kind of like cue for all the older boys to, like, get up now. And I remember the young man up above me say, like, tonight's your night or something like that. And I didn't know what to think about it. But all of a sudden, like, all the boys surrounded the bunk bed that I was in. And I remember one of them sitting on top of me and just sort of talking all kinds of, like, gross stuff to me, and how much they hated me and this and that. And the other boys had, like, held the blankets down on me so I couldn't move around or anything like that. And it was a really interesting memory, because I didn't really know what I was doing. And I remember kind of leaving my body and, like, standing like 10 feet away from my body, watching these boys, sit on me and, like, make fun of me and poke me and, like, basically trying to make me cry and being really mean to me. And I just remember watching, like, just watch, like probably my first time I ever like had this experience of like leaving my body and just watching and hoping that I don't have to go back to my body, and that it feels safer here is kind of like what I was experiencing. But eventually, you come back down and you realize, like, there's bruises on your body and you're terrified and you don't know how to tell anybody. You actually don't even trust the adults there anymore, too, because you feel like, the boys will be boys and they're just sort of letting things, let these young gentlemen, like, let their steam out any way they want to. So it was really interesting memory that I have of the Key Canyon boarding school. I remember telling my mom and my aunt, and my aunt got really frustrated with my mom, like, why are you allowing Donovan to stay in this boarding school where they're being treated very badly? And there was even one incident too where we were having like a dance in front of everybody, and the older gentleman came up behind me and like pulled my pants down in front of everybody. I'd never been so embarrassed. And that's what happened. Like, just incidences like that. I feel like a lot of young people talk about being bullied. They talk about being traumatized and terrorized when they're younger. But I always felt like, I was the only one going through it. And I always felt like I was like the laughing matter, the joke, and someone that everyone could just sort of, destroy. And I kind of started to not value myself, I remember. So that's kind of like my younger years as far as like being a part of that boarding school. It wasn't like the best time of my life ever. And I used to always cry when I got dropped off. And I remember one time too, I woke up and got dressed and put my shoes on, and there was like shampoo or something, like they put shampoo in my shoes, and I was just so upset, and I was crying, and like the dorm maids were like not caring at all, and it was just tough. I hated that experience altogether. And that was Key Canyon Boarding School, and I'll never ever like want to revisit that place again. It's just a disgusting place. I don't think it's running anymore, so thank goodness. But my aunt took me out, and she again re-entered me over at Jedito, and I kind of like finished up third and fourth grade kind of there. And I did some of my year in Holbrook too, because I also had a lot of good friends from like kindergarten, first grade, and second grade in Holbrook that I grew up with, and it was really nice to sort of re-enter that community of friends I had there. And I will say, like, third grade, fourth grade was probably the last time I ever really had, a guy friend. Because I remember, in Holbrook, there's a playground like on the north side of Hewlett Elementary, and it's like a jungle gym / like tire swings and stuff. And I remember playing with my friend Nathaniel and Levi, and all of a sudden, like this group of boys, and I still remember how they came up to us. They just kind of started standing there, and then and I just didn't take no note of it, other than these ones were bullies of mine and they hated me, and that's all that they were there for, was just to push me around and be mean to me. And so these boys, they told Nathaniel and they told Levi, like, why are you hanging out with that fag, is basically what they said. And that he acts like a girl and blah, blah, blah. And then they just kind of like dropped what they were doing with me. They kind of just stopped, looked at each other, and then they like left me and went to the group of guys. And that was the last time I think I ever thought to myself, like, I will never try and make friends again, because, it hurts already because you're, don't have no one around you, and your home doesn't feel like it's your home. And that's sort of that first time I vowed, like, I don't want to make friends. I don't want to get to nobody. Nobody wants to know me. No one cares for me. I'm the only one going through this at school. My teachers don't believe me. Common things are being told to me, like, boys will be boys, tough love and all these weird messages around like just be strong and push through it, be resilient, stuff like that. And I didn't understand that, you know, I was like 6, 7 years old. And those are the type of things that really, I would like to say, shattered my life, because I didn't know much about my identity at that time. And I was just trying to fit in as much as possible. I was trying to be someone who was smart, someone who went above and beyond in their education. That's when like I sort of hyper focused on being more academically sound. And you know, one of my fondest memories is, you know, in 5th grade was like my teacher telling me that I have a lazy tongue and that, you know, you Indians don't know how to speak English correctly. And they have a lazy tongue. And I always remember thinking that I don't want to be that Indian. I don't want to be that person that they're describing. And I, you know, really kind of put my language away and put my culture aside. And I, from there, kind of just said like, well, I'm going to go through the system and just get through high school and be done with it. And this is only like 5th grade. I was already thinking like this. So that was really interesting to be there. So then 1999 is like the time we finished 5th grade and was heading on to 6th grade. And I definitely had some fears because the bullies that I had were there in 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. And, you know, junior high, middle school, it's a whole different ball game, you know. And so I remember entering 6th grade just trying to stay under the radar. I didn't want to be seen. I didn't want to be picked out from the crowd. I didn't want any attention. I spent a lot of time in the library, which, you know, I got heckled a lot for, like, why are you like such a bookworm? Why are you always reading? Blah, blah, blah. Things like that. And I just remember thinking like, this is like the only way I get to escape from reality. This is the only way I get to see a world outside of like Holbrook, Arizona, outside of like White Cone, Arizona. And so I dived deep in literature, anything, like even when it came to picture books too, like I always was looking at something international, some sort of National Geographic, looking at different places in the world that I wanted to be and visit one day. And I was really imaginative as far as wanting to get the hell out, I think even by 6th grade. And so 6th grade, you know, you start to mix your classes with 7th and 8th graders because everyone has like a schedule and a curriculum that they have to complete by the time they enter high school. And so my classes were starting to mix with other 6th and 7th graders. And then by the time I got through all that, I think something that I really hated about the K-12 system is physical education, or PE. I hated that so much just because of the binary and being treated like, you know, I didn't belong in those spaces. It was really hard because it was required. And I always wanted to argue and be like, why do I have to take these classes? They don't do anything for me. And they're the most hurtful classes that I have to take. And I don't think anyone ever heard me. I even tried to like cry to my mom, and she never really like had anything to say about it. And one of the well, I have several stories, but like, you know, in 7th grade is when I got the most scared because one day we didn't have the teacher. We had a substitute. And it was always on substitute days that I swear, like, your bullies know, like, it's like blood in the water, like a shark. They're going to come after you. And so finally, like, the tipping point happened, and I, you know, let a word slip. You know, it was the F word, and one of the older gentlemen got mad at me and basically came at me, like, about to pummel me. And you know, I just freaked out and started crying, and like I left. And the next day, I didn't want to get dressed. I didn't even want to go into the dressing room because they were waiting for me. They really were. And you know, they were like ready to fight me. They were ready to do something to me. And I remember peering into the bathroom, and they were just standing there, and they had these smirks on their faces, and I just knew I was gonna die. So I didn't get dressed. I just sat out, because when you don't dress up, you can't participate. And I was like very happy that day, but I got left behind there. And then the next day, PE teacher came up to me like, I heard what happened. I also heard that you're not participating. Like, why aren't you dressed up? And I tried to bring it up to the individual, and they were just like, well, you know what? You know, again, boys will be boys. And if something comes up like this, like, just please tell me. And it was just like so strange. Like, I don't want to have to relive all those things constantly, trying to tell the teacher, like, these people are bothering me, these people are physically threatening me, these people are verbally abusive and emotionally abusive toward me, and I think they know it, and I think they're getting away with it all the time. So it was such an interesting time to experience, you know. And for me, I think, obviously, because you're like pre-adolescence and you're starting to understand like changes in your body, and it just kind of got really like intense like after 6th grade. And then you know, 7th grade was the final year that I had to take PE, and I just did not like it at all. I hated every moment of it. And you know, I at this point, like, you start to have friends that start to like break apart into different cliques and different groups. And I was one of those individuals that didn't need to be a part of any of that, but I was pretty much at least known in every group. Like, people from every group sort of said hi to me, which was really nice. But I just didn't find a place to belong. And even if like I belonged to a certain group, I think I didn't want nothing to do with it either, because I didn't want to be othered or classified as, you know, someone that's weird, or someone who definitely might identify gay or anything like that. I already had strong messages that that was bad, and that's something I don't want to like identify with, because it would only make me a larger target for the bullies and for the treatment I was already getting. Yes, there were plenty of times, you know, that I always wanted to stay home. And I think sometimes, like, this is where I kind of understand depression, because I realized, like, there was a lot of outlets I didn't have. And I also, you know, going back to that experience where I like left my body and didn't want to go in it, there was a lot of times when I felt like those type of emotions and those type of feelings so strongly, that I remember when I was like 7, and even a little bit later, like around 10 or 11, I always the ideation started, you know, about ending my life. The ideation started about wanting to relieve the pain, wanting to no longer be the subject of terror or abuse or anything like that. And, you know, that's where I started to get a lot of ideation. I didn't have really any attempts, other than this one time when I had a knife in my hand, and I really wanted to just grab that knife and shove it up inside my stomach and be like bleed out and just feel all the pain, because I felt like that physical pain would probably feel a lot better than all the other pain that I was experiencing. You know, when it came to PE in high school, you have to take like half a credit in high school, so one semester of it. And unfortunately, you know, PE fell at the most weird time for me in my adolescence. Is like, you know, it was my freshman year, and it was a co-ed class, and it was constantly filled with like older, like junior, senior students. And again, the people who like terrorized me from K through 12 were there in that class too. And it was just a weird time. But there was an interesting pivoting point for me that year too, is like my grandma was getting sick. The only person that I was able to confide in and share my life in, although we didn't speak the same language, because obviously by this time I was strongly opposed to speaking anything other than English. And my grandmother was getting really sick on us, and she was staying with us, and I would like always try and stay home to be with her, and because I knew, you know, it was getting close for her. And I just always remember like that sort of being a focus for me. And in my freshman year of high school, is that my grandma's probably getting really sick and she's not going to be here with us much longer. And that's what happened. You know, like I had a really terrible semester. You know, still a lot of teasing in the locker rooms, a lot of like body shaming, a lot of I would say accusations about me looking at other bodies, or you know, I don't know, acting a certain way that might identify me as gay or something like that. And so I just always remember thinking like, I don't want any of that. I don't care about that. I want to get the fuck out of here, and I don't want to be here in Arizona. Like that was like already my mindset, pretty much there. And so my grandmother got really sick in the end of November, and she stayed with us. And like the early part of December, I got to spend time with my grandmother. And the cool thing about my grandmother was like, you know, she was always one of those people that like gave what she could when she had it. And I remember one time before school, she asked me to come see her, and she gave me like a little like package, like a little like plastic bag full of change. And I thought to myself at that time, like, what am I gonna do with this? But like that was the way that's the way she showed like gratitude, and like she was willing to help in some way. This was her gift for me, and she's just like, go enjoy lunch, buy something good for yourself. And I remember thinking, thank you so much. You just made my day, you know. And I always wanted to like rush home and be closer to her because I knew time with her was running out. And then like early December, I told my mom that I would watch my grandmother because she was having trouble with like her wheezing and her breathing. I was coaching her with her yes. I was coaching her to use her inhaler all the time. And she also had the nebulizer machine. If you've heard one of those, they're loud and it looks painful. But I would hook her up to it, and I would tell her how to like breathe it in and hold it, and like focus on, you know, kind of loosening up stuff in there. And it was kind of challenging because obviously I don't speak Navajo. And I just remember trying to be their comfort as much as I could and make her comfortable. But I remember like walking her out of the bedroom and taking her to the living room and had her lay there. And so then I took the Christmas tree box out, and we started to put the tree up together. And it was so adorable because she would just like tell me, like point like where she wanted a certain ornament and where she wanted lights to be at. And that was like the last time I had like that, like, you know, that time with my grandmother that I cherished the most is putting up a Christmas tree. And it's also the most painful moment too, because it's like, it is the last activity I did with her. And it's also one of the only activities that sort of like gave me a different outlook on the way I wanted to celebrate Christmas in the future. And I remember just like turning the lights on, and we're just like in awe of our own tree, and putting the angel up and everything. And it was really nice. And then as the evening started to go on, like her wheezing started to get really bad, and I had to tell my mom, like, I don't think she's breathing well anymore. I don't think she's gonna make it through here at home. We need to do something about it. And so we got her to the hospital, but my mom told me to stay. So she had me and my sister go to my aunt's house, and she had us stay home. And then that night, she called us saying that they have to fly my grandma out and that she's not doing very well. And they flew her out to Phoenix Indian Medical Center. And I guess there, I was staying at my aunt's house, and I guess there, like, the whole week, I was just worried about her, and I was praying, and I was, like, thinking good thoughts for her. Like, I want her to come home to me sooner. I don't want her in pain, things like that. And she was suffering that whole time, and unbeknownst to me is that my mom had learned all this information about her, is that my grandmother had been living with an aggressive cancer for about 5 years, and that it had finally spread everywhere. And no one really knew that at all. I guess it was like a family hush hush type of thing, and because she was older already, that they didn't really want to do any treatments and stuff like that. I think my grandma had opted out and just sort of like letting it run to course. And so they were having family gatherings already down in Phoenix and kind of getting on top of the situation. And here I was going to school every day, hating the gym, hating having to be there, teased and picked on every day. And finally Thursday in 2022, December, on a Thursday evening, we got a call that my mom told me that grandma had passed away. And my world stopped. And like photographs and like videos, all these memories started coming through. And but I don't know, I was, I think it just felt like my mom died, my mom died, but she was my great grandmother, and this person that was so important to me is gone. And I thought to myself, like, how am I going to go back to school without her strength, without her support with me? And it was, that first couple of weeks, I was just sort of like numb and walking in so much depression. And I think for me too, what was so weird is that I didn't have friends to console me. I didn't have like family to console me. I had like a religious family telling me like, oh, she's good, God has her, she's saved, this and that, like, but to me I was like, that's bullshit. And that's kind of like how my freshman year sort of kicked off too. It's like, this climactic place of like, I was getting bullied the most, and I was just really down low. And then I lost my grandmother, my great grandmother, and and I think when you have your first loss, no one knows how to prepare you for that. And there's not a lot of like, there wasn't a lot of resources for me after I lost my grandmother, like for bereavement or understanding death, understanding like changes after death, things like that. And And the funeral went by really quickly too, and I was able to attend some of like the wake and some of the other meetings leading up to her funeral. And I remember this conversation I had with my PE instructor, Miss Baldonado, and I was just like, yeah, my grandma passed away. And she's like, well, how old was she? Like, she was like, like in her mid to late 80s. She's like, oh my gosh, like she lived a fruitful life. Like, you should be so happy she lived that long and that you got to meet her and all this stuff. And I remember thinking, like, what? Why would you say something like that to me? And I was really angry. One was like, why is this white bitch telling me this? And the other one was like, how can you minimize and discredit my emotions and my feelings and this connection I have with this person I lost. The first real person I lost, someone that was so integral in my life that, sort of helped me instill values, helped me be the person I am today. So it was really interesting to be holding all these emotions. When you're really sad, then you're like really happy for, like the fact that your grandmother's no longer suffering, to the point where you're angry and you hate the world because, your grandma's no longer there with you. And so I remember like going through all these emotions at that time. And then the time came for the funeral, and it was in Winslow, Arizona, where she had the funeral. And I remember getting in line to view the body. They had an open casket ceremony for her. And I waited kind of till the end to visit the body, just because, I've never been to a funeral. It's like my first time. I don't know what to do, because there's so many taboos in my family about death and like what to do and what not to do. And but I was in line to see my grandmother, to view my grandmother's body, and she looked asleep, and she had this beautiful scarf on, and she had a really beautiful velvet top on, and she had this Pendleton blanket on her waist, and she had the best get up ever, like turquoise and silver, and the cuffs and her rings and everything. And I actually wanted to be like, get up, like, come on, get up. And it was really strange because I thought to myself, like, this is not real. My grandma's asleep, And I reached out to her hand and I touched her hand, and it was cold. It was so cold. And I was like, oh my gosh. It's real. My grandma's not here. I remember thinking. And then I was done. I just let go of her hand and I walked away. And I think I thought to myself, like, there's nothing else I could experience that's this painful, so bring it on now. I think is what I kind of like had that like switch in my head. And yeah, that was like my first loss. And it's something that's still very much alive. It's still very, I feel like it's there almost every day of my life. And sometimes it repeats and I don't want it to, but it's constantly taking place. But I have a lot of great memories of my grandmother, going out to the sheep with her, and just these moments of like waking up and smelling coffee, and the KTNN's on, and there's some like squad dance music playing, or there's some Yebache dance music playing, and she's there laughing and conversing with her kids. And all this in the beautiful, Navajo language. And yeah, I think that was a really interesting experience to have, is just to kind of like go through the loss of a really close relative, for me, my great grandmother. And so, yeah, the rest of high school was really strange because, like, you become rebellious and you become strong in your own way, you kind of figure out what your voice is and what your stances are in life. And I think after my great grandmother passed away, I didn't want to deal with the bullshit no more. I think I figured out, like, why the hell am I allowing people like these men to really say whatever they want to me? Why am I allowing this treatment toward myself? And so, after my freshman year, I left the Holbrook School District, and I asked my mom to send me over to Winslow School District, where my cousins were. Um, and when I went to Winslow, I still had the same bullies. Like, they somehow ended up there too. And, it's the same exact system, same exact situation where I was still being sort of kind of identified as someone to be bullied or mistreated, and being called all sort of terrible names based on assumed sexuality and gender expression and things like that. And again, still definitely trying to fit in. And that's when I met some other gentlemen that I felt like were like myself, but the thing about them, that like these guys, they were unapologetic. They didn't give a shit. They definitely were outside the mold. Like, they loved volleyball. They loved to hang out with girls, and they were so awesome. I like just thought to myself, like, why didn't I find these people a lot sooner? And they were just great. And I think that was a really great time for me to sort of develop my my new perspective of the world, that there are gay men out there, there are native gay men out there, and that it's okay to be who we are. It's okay to be myself. And I think that's the first time internally I realized, like, this is what I will call myself as, being gay. And this is not coming out, but like, this is not coming out, but like, it was definitely a time when I realized, like, in myself, in my core, that I was not going to marry a woman, that I probably wasn't going to have children, and that I didn't want to get married, that I didn't want to sort of have to live a life like what everyone else thinks that you should live your life like. And so, my sophomore year went by really fast. I didn't really get a lot of bad treatment or anything like that. And I had, a group of friends that were willing to back me up or be nice to me. I also got introduced to heavy drinking at this point. I was experiencing some of my first blackouts, going out and partying and sneaking away to get drunk, really, really drunk, to escape from my feelings and stuff. So that's kind of where that happened, that sort of behavior around drinking to cope, drinking to numb myself, and drinking to escape and not be like on this playing field that we're in, when we're sober and we're alert and awake. And that's what I started to treat drinking as. It was for me to get out of here. And I had a really good friend in high school, and we call him Tony. And, he was probably one of the only individuals that was interesting, because, like, in my younger years, he was a part of the group of other bandits of like LGBTQ people that I didn't realize they were until like later on. I started to realize, like, oh yeah, they are. But he always asked, like, why were you like this, and why did you act like that? We wanted you under our wings. We wanted to take care of you, and then like you didn't want any of that. And remember, like, I didn't want to associate with anything like that. I just wanted to be normal and not be seen. And I told him that was the reality of my life, is like I just didn't want any more reasons to be bullied and tortured and stuff like that. And so I think he understood. And then in the middle of my junior year, the in the wintertime, the heater at the residential school closed down, and it was no longer functioning, and we couldn't be there no longer. It wasn't safe for us because of how low the temps were dipping in the night. And so I would try to stay at Tony's house for at least 2 weeks. It was going okay until his mom was like, "Who is Donavan, and where are they from, and who are their parents?" And finally, I guess she talked to her son Tony and said, like, I couldn't stay with them no more. And so it came to the point where they took me back to my mom's place, and then I just kind of introduced themselves. First time my mom meeting my best friend's mom, and that's kind of how it went. And then because I was missing school, I just decided to tell my mom that I was going to transfer back to Holbrook, where I hated it. And I think my mom said something along the lines that maybe it's different now. Maybe, the people that were there just no longer care about this stuff no more. And I was like, okay, whatever. So I remember transferring back, and it was so nice because some of my grade school friends, people I grew up with K through 12, at that point came up to me and hugged me and actually said that, welcome home and welcome back. You're back to be a road runner, this and that. And that was really nice to actually get have some sort of welcome back. And I wasn't expecting that at all. I was just expecting like, oh my God, like that person's bad. Let's be mean to them again. And I remember one day, these two gentlemen, like ran into me and they're like, "Oh, get out of here." And they're like, "Oh, fuck, this fag's back," or something like that. And I remember turning around so quickly, like, what the fuck did you say? And I never was so like upfront like that with a bully before. And then they just kind of looked at me kind of like stunned, like, wait, did Donavan just like stand up for themselves? And they're like, "Oh, nothing." I think they just said something like that, and they just like walked off. And then that's when I kind of like, that's when I was like, wait, fuck it. Like, I am not going to let anyone determine my life no more. And after that, I just focused so much on school. Like at that point, like I sort of ruined my GPA just a little bit, but I was like, I'm gonna get out of here. And the summer of my junior year, I had the opportunity to go to Tucson to a really awesome like healthcare program that takes minority students to University of Arizona, and I had a really good time there. And that summer, I learned more about myself, that I wanted to be in a city. I didn't want to be in the rural area no more. I was going to go to college, and that maybe I might go to U of A. I had a lot of great aspirations. Like there was just so much more energy and motivation and inspiration to do something new, and I was excited. And so that's what happened. And in my senior year, I did everything. I was involved in almost everything I could be involved with. I applied for over 200 scholarships. I got into the University of Minnesota Twin Cities campus for biological sciences. Like I was living my life, and I really enjoyed that time because I got to sort of celebrate, all the pain and hardship that I experienced K through 12, and be able to look back at it without like regret or being bummed out, other than having those real experiences that really still bring me to tears sometimes, because it's like, why the hell did I have to deal with that shit? Like, I'm just a child. Like, why would you do that to me? To this point in my life where I was like, the world is my oyster. I get to do whatever I want. I determine how I want to live my life. I'm gonna get the hell out of here. And it was really nice to be able to graduate with that sort of mentality, and the opportunity to know that like once I graduated, I would go to Oklahoma University and enjoy an 8-week program there, and then head off to start my college experience. And I feel like I kind of rushed through this experience K through 12, but for the most part of it, I feel like those were sort of some of my most pivotal moments growing up. I left out a lot of my some of my most scariest moments, because there are other topics that I really want to discuss in the future around depression, around identity development, and also around abuse and sexual molestation abuse, and kind of how all that sort of played in my life as I was, heading toward high school graduation. So I was a little intentional about leaving those parts of my story out at this point. In my next episode, I'm going to be focusing a little bit more about identity development in my kind of pre-adolescence, adolescence, and early emerging adult years, and kind of thinking about what it meant to sort of take on these labels like being gay, what it meant to take actions in community, like for the first time coming out, performing drag, all the way to like this early understanding of what it meant to sort of come out and preparing to come out again, and this time eventually as trans. And just sort of talking about that a little bit more, that identity development side of my life. So we'll see you next time. Yeah, hagornet.